about it. You want me? I can sit.
No,
I
that's great.
can go outside if you want.
No, that's great.
All right.
Is this your home?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Great.
I
I'm just
have internet. Hi, is that Arden?
yeah.
Hi. Where are you guys? In New York?
No, we're in Austin.
Oh, you are? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You used to direct the Texas Book Festival, right?
I did used to do that, yeah. And just, was a journalist before that and wanted to get back to journalism, so here I am.
Oh, cool. Well, congratulations. That's cool.
Thank you. Well, congrats on the book. You did a great job with it, and it's been nice to see it just sort of rise up the list,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I didn't expect that stuff. It freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah,
But glad people are reading it. I mean, that's what you want, so that's good.
right, right. Well, let me ask you, I've read an interview that you did where you talked about the sort of idea for this coming to you on a train as you're riding into Penn Station and the lack of technology, and then you had this sort of interminable dinner in France.
Yeah, you're all over it. That's it.
But after that was the spark, I guess. But after you determined that the novel would be set in World War II, one of the nice things about this novel is all the nice historical touches. What kind of research did you have to do for the novel?
Lots is the easy answer. I'd say reading was the primary research, although I went to Europe 3 times. So looking at things and places and just seeing the weather and what birds come over the walls and trying to understand what winter and spring are like in Saint-Malo. So experience is part of it, but primarily it's reading. Reading memoirs, particularly reading anything, even fiction written before whatever I was writing about, whether it's 1938, 1944, then you realize anytime you steal a detail, like what they ate for dinner or what sounds the streetcars made, then you realize, okay, that's probably accurate, So, like for example, some reviewer was picking on me for prepackaged sandwiches somewhere in there. I think after Marie's father is taken prisoner, the Germans bring them prepackaged sandwiches, and I read that in some prisoner's memoir. I was kind of surprised as well. I'm like, I didn't make that up, I promise. They had them then, 1940. So, ultimately you start falling in love with details. Research can be a kind of procrastination, and you have to learn eventually that you can't just keep looking at the tea leaves. You have to make your cup of tea and hand it to the reader, in a sense. So, I would fall in love with all these details. I fell in love with this. I read that Canadian paratroopers on D-Day jumped out of airplanes with fold-up bicycles on their backs and would hit these roads in Normandy and then start pedaling around. So I spent a whole week making up a whole character just so I could have this guy unfold his bicycle. And then, you look back, you're like, what am I doing? Like, this doesn't fit at all. I don't need a Canadian character in here. So, occasionally you have to make little detours and realize, ultimately it's a work of the imagination first and foremost.
Right. And so one of the nice details was this sort of set of the city that Marie Laure's father builds for her. What was that like totally invented or a detail you came across? Or
yeah, I'll be right back. I have a Japanese puzzle. I'll be right back. Somewhere in here. Sorry, Clay.
That's okay.
I forgot about that. Okay, so this is a very old Japanese puzzle box that a friend of my dad's gave to me when I was a kid, and it actually opens. It took me weeks to figure. He wouldn't tell me how it opened. He just said it opened, and it looks like a seamless block of wood. But once you learn these little tricks, you can kind of open it. It has sliding panels, and it's beautiful. The woodwork on this thing is beautiful. And I had this as a kid and kind of forgotten about it. I was pulling it out of a box. It was well into the work of this novel, and I had him working on miniatures for her to help her find her way around the city. I already had him doing that. And then I started thinking about puzzles and carpentry, and I just started thinking, I needed somewhere for him to hide this diamond, and I thought, what if he not only makes these cities, but they're also puzzles in a way. So um, I don't know. Yeah, it's invented. I've always loved miniatures. I loved playing with Legos as a boy. I've loved the idea of little worlds inside bigger worlds. I think that's kind of what a novel is. You pick up a book and it's got a whole world inside of these pages, and so that's what kind of Jules Verne represents to her as well. And then being able to stand over a city and play with scale, I think, is really interesting. There's a lot of attempts at metaphor about how we control the things around us, and Germany occupying France, or something about having this big sergeant major loom over the city that appealed to me metaphorically. So I like playing with that stuff. Yeah, it's invented. Long answer.
Yeah, no, it was a great touch. So congrats on that. Hey, tell me about the short chapters. Why sort of frame the novel in that kind of structure?
One answer is that the book took me about 10 years to write, and we have 10-year-old boys, twin boys. I just had to relearn how to work. Before I had kids, I was able to find 6-7 hour stints when nobody would come in that door right over there and mess with me. And now, I want them to come in. It's fun. They're a light in my life. But I had to figure out new ways to work, and one way was working in smaller, manageable sections. So usually, with these little chapters, I could read through them, improve them, revise them in maybe 2 or 3 hours before I had to take them to swimming lessons or pick them up from school or something. So in some ways, it was just a practical thing. I liked working in manageable sizes, and I could peel away, since the book is structured kind of A, B, Marie, Werner, even though there are some variations in that symmetry. I liked being able to peel away, say, all of Marie's sections for a month or something, and read, blocks of Werner's chapters in a row, and see kind of how they moved together. Try to provide little provisional resolutions at the end of each chapter, but also maybe pose some kind of narrative question at the end of each one, so the reader's compelled to keep going as well. I've been getting questions like that I never thought I would get, like, do you intend this as a response to shorter attention spans and the Twitter universe that we live in? And I never expected any of those things. I just thought, each of these characters is a plate that I'm trying to spin, and you have to go touch that plate pretty regularly to keep it spinning in your reader's mind. And I worried that if I left for more than 3 or 4 pages, that plate would start to wobble and fall down, and the reader would, forget about what was happening in Marie's world.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, you're respected both as a short story writer and as a novelist. This, because of its format and the long sort of epic story it tells, it seems like it was always going to be a novel for you, but do you prefer one form over the other?
I don't. I love writing short stories. They're a place where I can feel a little less anxiety about trying risky things, because if it caves in, it's only maybe 4 months of your life that go up in smoke. So I like playing with stories. I think you can pursue different curiosities. I wrote a long story, for example, about the Three Gorges Dam called Village 113, and really that was just an excuse to try to understand what was happening in China. I'd read about the scale of this dam, but I had never fully understood what it was. So this was just 6 months that I could learn about it. So in a lot of ways, you get to pursue more of your interests and more of your curiosities when you're writing short fiction. With World War II, there obviously is an infinity of stories embedded inside that conflict, but there were times when, especially reading about the Eastern Front, when the harrowing nature of the research was overwhelming. And so it was refreshing to go into short fiction and try to write about other things, just to take a break from the psychic damage that a lot of the memoirs about the Eastern Front were doing to me.
Mm-hmm. And so what's next? Like more another novel or short stories? Or
great question. I think it'll be a novel. I kind of have 3 starts going right now. And you just kind of keep putting water and sunlight on them, and you find out which one will grow the most. And it's a really fun stage. I know some writers dread that composition stage, but it's fun for me. It's freer. You don't quite know who the characters are yet, and you're just trying to understand what's in these worlds. And so it's a lot of, a lot of research. I'm doing a lot of like looking at tons of books, and I was locked into feeling guilty anytime I didn't read a book set during World War II or about World War II for years. And to now be able to go read about the future or Byzantium or the Panama Canal, that's fun for me.
No, that's great. And so, technology is so crucial to this novel. Was it difficult to imagine a world so technologically different from our own, or was that fun? Because it seems like it might have been kind of fun.
Fun. I'm in love with radio, and to go back to a time when radio was this paramount technology, that in a middle, lower income German home, this one state-subsidized machine, this black radio, was the one link to the larger world that, and Germany's using it in these really awful ways to pump propaganda into these people's kitchens. Yeah, I loved it. I loved trying to return to this moment when hearing the voice of a stranger in your house was kind of a miracle. Now my wife and kids go out of town, and I turn on the TV because the house feels too quiet. But for the history of humanity, thousands of generations, you had to look at the person you were talking to, and that's all just changed in 60 years, 70 years. So I liked it. It's fun.
Yeah. And so will you, is there going to be a French version?
Yeah, I'm working with my translator this week, right now.
Oh, great. And what do you anticipate the reaction will be like?
Oh, man, I don't know. I'll be terrified either way, I talked to people in Saint-Malo, and I worked with friends who are French while I was writing the book, but ultimately you were making assumptions about time and a culture that you were not part of. So, yeah, you're afraid. You hope you got things right, and you don't want to alienate people for whom this war is memory. There aren't too many people left who still remember these events, but there are some, and the last thing you want is to be disrespectful to them. So, terror is my answer. I tried to also make the novel have an undertone of fairy tale to it. There's a little bit of mythology underpinning it, even though all these events did occur. There's also, the characters are invented, and the way they interact really is informed by folktale. And so I hope the reader understands that while they are, I hope, learning some things they didn't know about the war, at the same time it's its own self-contained universe, much like the puzzle boxes that are inside it.
Yeah, that's great. And so could you talk a little bit about the evolution of Werner's conscious over the course of the novel? I kind of liked it how it was kind of parceled out, I guess.
Sure. You mean his conscience or his consciousness?
Conscious. In what morally? Like, what should he do?
Yeah, good question. The more I read about, testimonials, oral histories, memoirs about ordinary, if there is a certain person who's ordinary, German citizens, say 36 to 44, the more I kept wondering, would I have been strong enough? Would I have stood up? And usually my answer, if I was fully honest with myself, is no. I probably wouldn't have, especially if I had kids. You think about your own family, and you're like, you think about the much smaller kind of crimes that I'm going along with right now, like carbon emissions or, allowing violence that's happening in Syria right now to happen. And while I'm sitting here drinking tea in Idaho. So I don't know. I think I would have been more like Werner and less like his friend Frederick, who finds a way to stand up and really endangers his own life by doing that. So I think it takes him those 400-some pages to understand what his sister could see maybe all along, that what's happening around them is wrong.
Well, great. Well, we're going to take this footage and edit it down to about 3 minutes.
All right.
So,
That should be fun.
yeah. So, congrats again. You did a great job, and thanks for taking some time to talk to us.
Yeah, you bet, Clay. Thanks you, man. Good job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Well, have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, bye.